All right, thank you. Um, so my name is Young Anyao, and I'm a I'm a social media manager with FutureSoft. So this is our Launch and Learn series. We have this every month, and it's a time where we take our time to learn and get to share some of the knowledge that we have internally at FutureSoft. Amazingly, we'll try to make this also open to more people to join us from other organizations as well, see how they can be a part of this, and also, you know, get to benefit from the training. And today on the Launch and Learn series, I'll be training us on taking initiative for improved workplace effectiveness and productivity. All right, so we get started right away. In between, if you have questions, I would be glad to take them. And we'll also stop at the end of the slide to also take further questions if there are any or contributions. So it will be great to have you probably jot down a few things as well, or maybe jot down a few questions you may like to ask or contributions as it were. Okay, so we get started on the launch and learn for today, again, on taking initiative for improved workplace effectiveness and productivity. Now, let's carefully look at what taking initiative is as we get started. Now, researchers Michael Fries and Doris Fay defined initiative as a work behavior characterized by its self-starting nature. I like us to take it one after the other in such a way that we're able to understand the flow of what initiative is according to this definition by Michael Fries and Doris Fay. I like the definition so much, which is why I decided to put it in here. Now, is its self-starting nature. Many times when we are told to do something, once you have been told to do something, it is not self-starting anymore. And so it negates taking initiative. So initiative many times require that you are taking initiative on your own, and on your own, you are getting to start something without being told because you think it is the appropriate thing to do. So it's proactive approach. Now, proactive approach is being steps ahead. You know when this should be done, you get it done. And by being persistent in overcoming difficulties that arise in the pursuit of a goal. This last line cuts it for me. Many times people don't know that persistency in trying to overcome challenges is also taking initiative. So when you try and it doesn't work, and then at some point you try again, it doesn't work, you can get to begin to feel like, oh, let me let it slide. But someone who knows to take initiative will begin to think out of the box at that time. Persistency is also a way of taking initiative. So let's say there's a project on ground and everybody knows what to do, but in the middle of the project, it's almost as though it is going to fail. Someone who takes initiative is persistent because in that moment, they begin to think of creative ways to solve that problem. So persistency is also a tool that is needed in taking initiative. It's also a skill that is needed in taking initiative. So if you are to take initiative only when it is comfortable, only when it is good to go, only when it is easy, juicy, then it's not necessarily, it means you're taking initiative, but then you're not taking the kind of initiative that would be required to change certain levels in difficult times. All right. So let's look at taking initiative further. Now, when you take initiative, you do things without being told. You find out what you need to know. You keep going when things get tough, and you spot and take advantage of opportunities that others pass by. You act instead of reacting at work. So as we proceed, we'll look at acting and reacting, as it were. Now, most of us have seen initiative in action. Maybe you've seen a younger manager who feels her boss's shoe when the boss is sick, and the rest of the team is quite unsure what to do. Or perhaps you've seen a team member proposing a process improvement plan to the executive board. Ordinarily, this person is not in the position to propose this, but looks at the system and begins to think, what if we change this? What if we change this? What if we make it go this way? Even if you are not right at the time, but trying is important. It's important that you try, you think out of the box. It means that in the middle of trying, someday you may also get it right. And it's also important to know that many times in the middle of trying, one of the things that I want to hold people back in taking initiative is the fact or the thought that what if my idea is rejected? What if it is slammed back at me and say, hey, what's this? It's nothing, it's not working, it's not useful. And people get to that point where they begin to lock up to certain things because they feel like, I don't want to be rejected. I don't want my thoughts to look like, oh, I'm not sure it will be accepted. I'm not good enough. And when you begin to think like this, what you're doing is you're beginning to set some level of limitation on what you can do, what you can achieve, what you can propose, and thereby killing your creativity. Now, this happens to even the best of us many times. You want to get to that place where, because you are in a circle of people who are great thinkers like you, who are board of directors like you, and then it feels like every time you're always forthcoming, and sometimes you just want to be laid back and say, hey, I don't want them seeing me again this time. It's like my own self is too much. No. See, basically, I was sharing with someone yesterday, and I was trying to make an illustration, which I'd like to share here. And I was telling the person how it is that 10% of the world's population is controlling about 90% of the world's wealth. Why 90% of the world's population is struggling with about 10% of the world's wealth. And this is the reality. At the top of the pyramid, people get fewer. However, even at that point, there is still a little margin, the 1% margin out of the 10% that is still in control. And the truth is, if you must remain at the top of this margin every time, at the top of this pyramid every time, you have to show up. And showing up will require you to take initiative no matter where you've gotten to, no matter what people are saying. Like we have our own Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who recently became the Director General of the World Trade Organization. It might impress you to know that even in that caucus, there are people who still make her feel like your own self too much in our local parlance. And these things happen to even the biggest of us or the smallest of us. So initiative has become increasingly important in today's workplace, in the world. Organizations want employees who can think on their feet, who can take action without waiting for someone to tell them what to do. After all, this type of flexibility and courage is what pushes teams and organizations to innovate and to overcome competition. Why? The marketplace is getting really stiffer. So everybody wants to evolve into that place where they are able to stand apart, especially at the top of the pyramid, as the one who is leading change. And you cannot do that if you're not taking initiative. So now let's look at some of the ways you can take initiative. You can be proactive. Being proactive is one way to take initiative. Now, you can be proactive by anticipating what needs to be done and doing it before you are asked to. So what's this that needs to be done? You think out of the box. You are always in that place where you are thinking ahead, not just in the moment. You are asking yourself, what can I do to improve this? What can I do to do that? Now, use your knowledge of the job to determine where you have the competencies to make decisions on your own, or whether you should present your ideas to your supervisors before proceeding. For example, if you're working on a project and your supervisor is out sick for the day, you may not have been assigned a project-related task to do. Now, if you can think of a task to work on that needs to be done to move the project forward, they may commend you for taking initiative and being proactive during their absence. So instead of allowing that project to forestall because, all right, I wasn't told what to do and I really wouldn't know what to do, then one of the ways to be proactive is to think, what is the next step from here? What do we intend to achieve with this project? If I do this or that, would I be able to at least move it from where it is to something at least that is a bit progressive? And then when you're able to think this through, you can reach out and ask questions. Or if you think you're very sure, you go ahead, get it done, and drop your report and say, I did this. And while you're on it, one of the important things to do is to communicate your progress so that you can be also monitored and maybe advised on what to do as you progress with your proactiveness. All right. Now, let's look at being proactive and being reactive, which is what I talked about in the first stage. Now, there is the possibility that you can get proactive or reactive. And this is what happens when you become reactive. When you become reactive, it is many times taking things personal. So I don't like that you did this. And as soon as you get that report, you are beginning to feel like, why is it always me? Why are they pointing to me every time? I don't like the way they talk to me. Many times it's important to know, to understand that in communication, there is what we call action and intention. Now, action may come off very wrongly, but it's also very important to understand the intention behind the action. This is our company's brand. And hey, I wouldn't afford it being dragged on the floor, which is why I need this done. That's the heart of the person communicating at the time. And hey, we've come a long way to drag this company on the ground right now. I can't afford to have that. And so, because of that, you're hearing the person communicating, maybe a superior, is saying, this is rubbish. I need this to be corrected immediately. Now, when you understand that beyond the person saying this is rubbish, you are able to separate the word being communicated from the intention. You're trying to understand that, hey, this is what is at stake. And this is why this is so urgent that sometimes the language may come in this way. Someone that is reactive begins to get emotional about what's on ground and forgets the work that needs to be done. Being reactive is being under pressure and not being able to maintain the pressure and maybe probably cussing around, getting angry, and see within the space when you're getting angry and reacting to that thing, you are not producing any results. You are only getting angry and not producing results. You are not being proactive. So a proactive person looks beyond emotion and looks at results. Let's go get this done. All right, it's fine. Everywhere is on fire, but I need to achieve this and this and this. So if I do this and this, at that point, the person is beginning to think, okay, not only me can do it, what do I do? Probably delegate. Delegation begins to come in. What if I get this person to help me? This person, you're being proactive at that time instead of being reactive to the situation on ground. And this is very essential if you must take initiative, if you want to know to take initiative. All right. Now let's look at number 2, finding opportunities for improvement. It's easy to stay on a course for a long time and doing what is most likely, I'd like to use the word mundane. It's routine. You do it every time, like a machine, like you've been put on replay. Every time you just put a track, a hit track on replay, and it just keeps coming back again and again and again. And this is why you see that the world is improving. Is what we now call machine learning. Machine learning is such that there are machines that are being designed to be able to repeat work that can be done easily or that can be done routinely. These days, we're beginning to have machines that can even respond to you on the counter in banks, collect your money, do your transactions, because those things are routine. Now, we keep looking at the future of work, and the reality is that as workplace begins to improve over time, more robots, AI, artificial intelligence will begin to be implemented to take the place of human beings in the office place, in the work environment. But here is where a human beats the machine. It's being able to spot routine and know where to break it for improvement's sake. A machine is garbage in, garbage out. If you are a human and you're also doing garbage in, garbage out, it means that you're not even implementing what it means to take initiative, what it means to think out of the box, what it means to take action beyond what you were told or what you have been told or what you've been thought to do. So you can take initiative by looking for opportunities for improvement. For example, if you interact with the public and get consistent feedback from clients, you could look for patterns in issues clients encounter. So you handle a position where you relate to the public a lot, and then there are always questions that are coming up and you have to answer. So let's say a machine is in that place where they have to respond to certain things. And as a result of that, they just give answers as soon as those questions. So the machine knows to identify keywords and knows the answer that rhymes with that keyword. If you end up giving back a response that has been designed or imputed in a machine, you are not doing anything better off than a machine. But now you look at it consistently and you realize, okay, these are questions that are being asked. What if I create a booklet more like a frequently asked questions for our clients? And then you look at all the questions that have been asked previously and you begin to compile them. Look at patterns that are repetitive when you engage a new client and begin to say, okay, what if we begin to take this new process? Because every time we have a new client, they always ask this question. They always want to find out this. They always want to know this. They always want to see this. They always want to understand this. And then you begin to compile all of those things together and make it a frequently asked question that is easily downloadable on the company's website. Now, that is taking initiative. And you see, the idea of being able to come up with something and couple it up in like a booklet can even open opportunities for you with the management board to think that this person can think out of the box. This person can end up doing certain reports, compile information, and begin to put them in order. And that could bring about an opening for you in the organization, because maybe something that is related to doing a research, paying keen attention shows up. Like, this person has been really attentive. Beyond the work that you do at that time, you realize that taking initiative opens up several skills and capacity that you have beyond your job description, so that it helps you in that place where people can easily think, who is a fast thinker? You see, in your job description, fast thinking may not be there, but in your delivery, you have shown that capacity. You have shown that uh, skill. And when there is an opening for higher assignments or uh, an opportunity that requires someone to be able to think on their feet, your name pops up. Why? Because you could find opportunities for improvement. You are taking initiative. All right. You can then use this feedback to highlight weak points in current company practices and advocate for positive change within the company. Now, to go even further, you suggest sending out a survey to gauge public opinion, and gather more data. Like, you can even do a survey beyond the book, the frequently asked questions. You can even do like a survey to help you ask questions and help you know how people are thinking around a particular service, around a particular product, and all of that. And you're able to maximize that information to probably prefer new solutions or bring about a proposal. And see, with this, you are showing more capacity, you are showing more effectiveness in the workplace. All right, so let's look at voicing your ideas. Now, Voicing your ideas is also a part of initiative. I've seen people have cold feet, even though they have great ideas, but they're not able to share. They are not able to talk. Taking initiative will require you to be bold, will require you to speak up, will require you to say, hey, I want to say this. Can I suggest? Now, sharing your ideas at meetings or individually with colleagues and supervisors is another way to take initiative at work. I am usually of the opinion that if you want to get noticed, you have to show up. And this is the law of life. You cannot be noticed in your cocoon. It's not possible. Nobody will know you in your hiding place. So expressing your opinion can help you to establish your voice within the company and build your reputation as an employee who actively looks out for solutions. It's important to know that many times it's okay to say that what if my idea is not accepted? What if it does not cut the mark? But it's okay to also know that until you voice it out, you may not even know if it cuts the mark or not. So failure has a way of showing you what you know and what you don't know. When you don't try, you don't even know what you don't know because you assume. And see, assumption is the lowest level of knowledge. You already are in that place where you are assuming that, okay, I know, I think this is good, but until you voice it out, that idea, that thought will not be scrutinized to help you see probably the faults in it or the good in it, as it were. Now, if you have difficulty voicing your ideas, you can become more comfortable by offering suggestions to co-workers who are looking for help or advice, with your colleagues and all that. When you start at that level, you begin to find that you have the guts, the confidence to also begin to step up the plate and talk in a board meeting. But if you cannot relate very well with your colleagues in the workplace, people who work daily with you within a particular work environment, if you sit in a board meeting, for example, you won't be able to look at the faces of these same people and begin to talk. So it can begin from as small as sharing ideas with colleagues, and you see that you're able to voice your ideas. Gradually, you're growing more confidence and being able to reach out and see. It is in your ability to conquer a city that you'll be able to understand what it means or repeat the patterns in conquering a state. And that is how you can also climb to conquer a nation and a continent. It begins from your small circles. Small circles are really important in every area of life. It's just like the world has its smallest units embedded in families. And so you see that if in your family you cannot even voice your idea in that very small unit, you cannot voice your idea on a global scale. And this relates to every facet of life, including the work environment. All right. So let's look at number 4. Another way you can take initiative. You can be decisive. Now, you may find yourself faced with challenging decisions where there are several courses of action you could take. Now, you have to learn to be decisive. And to show initiative, you have to be decisive and choose the best way to proceed. All right. Now, come up with a few simple solutions to a problem. Weigh the pros and the cons of each solution and choose which course of action will work best. Now, in being decisive, it's at that point where you begin to probably look at one of the best approaches I use for making decision is the what's best analysis, where you're asking yourself certain questions. And these are some of the questions you can ask yourself. You can write down. Um, One, you ask yourself best, what is the best thing that would happen if I do this? Now you're analyzing the best thing that could happen if you were to do that particular thing in time. Now you write down a list of all the best things that will happen. And then you say, what is the best thing that would happen if I don't do this? That is, You are taking that same question and you're reversing it, but this time looking at the best thing that would happen if you don't. So what is the best thing that would happen if I don't do this? Now, you come back and then you do your worst analysis. The same question, what is the worst thing that would happen if I do this? And then you repeat the same question in the worst analysis and say, what is the worst thing that would happen if I don't do this? Now, this has ended up saving a lot of people and when they are at the point of making decision and they need to, you know, score a certain goal urgently and they are stuck, not knowing what to do. Now you look at it, what is the worst that can happen? What is the best that can happen if I do? What is the worst and the best that can happen if I don't? By the time you look at the pros and the cons, you see which are ways which it will be able to help you make decision on the go. All right. So making decision, being decisive is also really very essential you are when you are taking initiative, because sometimes it will require you to go out of your way to do certain things and you have to be decisive. All right. Now let's look at number 5. Improve systems, procedures, and policies. Improve systems, procedures, and policies. I think I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about finding opportunities for improvement, as it were. And and when I was talking about finding opportunities for improvement, I talked about how you can look at a set of questions and begin to bring out a new idea, or like a frequently asked question designed and prepared so that it can be used for incoming clients in the future. And so it's just like also looking out for ways to improve the system, all right, and procedures that are already laid down. Now, how do you do this? You can do this by looking at the process that is already on ground. And when you look at that process that is on ground, you ask yourself, how is it being done from point A to B before now? How is it being done from point B to C before now? How is it being done from point D to E? Now, when you look at these things, you're telling yourself, okay, great. If it is done like this from here to this point, and it is done like this from here to this point, what ways can we tweak this? What ways can we tweak this and improve it in such a way that instead of taking 9 steps to get to the answer, we can do 4 steps and still get the same result? In other words, we're making this seamless, we're making this effortless. And people don't have to go through all that amount of stress from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Like, it's exhausting already. Sometimes it's also important to be able to put yourself in the shoe of a client or a customer and ask yourself, if I have to go through these processes to get my result, would I be exhausted? Will I really be happy while going through these processes? Would I feel like you are sort of repeating the same thing again? What are the things that are unnecessary in the process, in the system, that can be taken out and it will not be noticed? In fact, it will make things even more effortless, even more seamless. So these are the kind of questions you can begin to look at. So if you notice that a policy is outdated, a great way to take initiative is to review it and make suggestions on how it can be updated. One thing that can be done to make this happen is, it's important to know that policies, procedures, systems were designed by man. And so because they are there doesn't mean that they cannot be reviewed. So when you look at a policy and it's been there for years, at that time when that policy was created, there are probably certain things or certain reasons that led to the creation of that policy. After a couple of years, there is need for you to step back a bit and look at how times have changed. how systems have changed and said, okay, how can we now tailor this policy and procedure to fit into the current changes, the current growth system, and how things are moving? So you can assess policies by thinking critically about whether they serve your company's and clients' needs, identifying weak points, and finding more efficient ways of doing things. Now, to make sure the updated policy is comprehensive, you could draft a new version of the policy and have members of your department review it and give their input before officially implementing it. All right. So let's look at another way that you can show or take initiative. Address and prevent problems. Now, you can show initiative by recognizing and working to solve problems, by actively addressing issues. You can help improve your workplace and sharpen your problem-solving skills. Now, one of the beauty about taking initiative, as far as I am concerned, is that it even sharpens you as a person. It helps you to become better. Like I said earlier, you don't know what you know and what you don't know until you try. You don't even know the validity of what you think you know until you put it out there for it to be criticized and weighed. Now, when confronted with issues, ask yourself questions to find the root cause of the problem. And these are a few questions you can ask. How and when did this problem arise? How and when? There is this very funny example that I heard some time ago, and it sort of interests me a lot when I am sharing like this to probably cite back to it. It's the story of a young lady who, didn't know the tradition why the mother usually had fishes cut in pieces and used while cooking. And so every time she wants to cook, she would have to cut everything, cut it and cut it so tiny. And so when she gave birth to her child would ask her, Mommy, why are you cutting the fishes so small? And the mom would say that, that's how I was taught. That's how it has been. My mother, I saw her do the same. My grandmother too, the same. And the girl said, oh, really? Did you ask them why? Say, no, that's how it has been. And so the young girl, in her curiosity, goes up to the mother, the grandmother, and says, Mommy, why do we always cut fish? It's very small, very tiny. And the grandmother said, oh, back then, our pots used to be very small. So the fishes won't be able to enter the pot. It's not sizable for the pot. So we cut it in bits so that the pot can take it all in. Now, see, the mother of the child is not applying why, how, what brought about this. And as a result, is not able to identify why this has been like a policy or like a system or like an approach over time. Now, if you want to change approaches, you need to understand how an initial one began. How and when did this problem arise? Now, is this a recurring problem? How can we prevent this problem from occurring or reoccurring, as it were? So when you begin to ask the WH questions, how, what, where, when, and you begin to pay attention closely, you would find loopholes, certain loopholes that are usually always there that you may not have known if you didn't ask questions. Questioning is a great tool for addressing problems or for even taking initiative. If you don't have a questioning mind, you almost will not be able to take initiative at all. You will never be able to take initiative and bring about process improvement or be able to change certain things in any place you find yourself. You have to have a questioning mind. And a wise man once said that your life moves in the direction or the quality of questions that you are asking per time. So if you check your life, you realize that your life revolves around the questions you're asking. For example, let's look at Futuresoft as a company. Why are we where we are? We're asking certain questions like we want to be at the top of our game. We want to be one of the greatest digital agencies in Africa. And so if we are asking questions, how can we become this? What happens? We begin to ask those questions, will begin to lead us to certain answers. We have to build a brand that is strong, that can stand the test of time, that can evolve as things are evolving. Now, because of that quality of question, you begin to see certain process improvements that brings about the kind of growth and positioning that we have as an organization. Now, any organization that is stalled, that is not growing, it is because they are not asking questions in line that will begin to cause them to think ways that will help them to climb up. Okay, so you are not getting the kind of staff that you need, you're not getting the kind of clients that you need. What do you do at that time? Do you now shut down and say, okay, fine, we're not getting these people? As a result, we have to close down this business. Is that what you do? No, what do? You sit down and you think critically. Why are we not getting the clients that we need? How do we know our target audience? And where are they located? Where can we find them? See, questioning begins to put you in certain directions and helps you. So it's a very great tool for taking initiative. Now, another question here is, have we tried different ways to solve this problem in the past? What is the time frame to solve the problem? Now, you can't brainstorm independently or work collaboratively with colleagues to find the best solutions to these problems, whichever way you go about it. But don't stay stagnant. Don't stay in that place where you are probably recalcitrant. You're not willing to make move, and you just feel like, well, he's been there. Let's let it slide. I'm new here. I don't think it should be my job description. Moreover, it's not my assignment. And when you begin to sound like that, what you're doing is you're also reducing your chances and your opportunities at changing certain things around you. And see, changing the world begins from that small circle, all right? Even in the workplace environment. All right. So let's look at number 7. Be prepared for meetings. All right. Now, be prepared for meetings. Attending meeting with suggestions and questions prepared demonstrates that you've taken the initiative to put time and thought into the meeting's purpose. Why? Let's look at the example here. If you present an idea at a meeting, such as implementing new software, you could do some research ahead of time on the following. Now, 1, cost-based analysis. So what if we bring about this new software and then you're thinking, what is the cost or the benefit for this software if we are to implement it? Now, you're not just coming up with the idea of implementing a software. You've gone ahead to even think that, okay, so what if I share this idea and they say, oh, great idea. I think it is nice. And you're saying, beyond just suggesting this, what if I do the cost analysis or the benefit analysis and you're looking at it? Now, this helps you to measure how making a decision will benefit the company and compares it with the cost of implementing the decision in terms of finances and labor. Now, you also check for risk analysis, like identifying issues that could adversely affect the company by making this decision. Analyzing this risk helps the company avoid or soften any adverse effects a decision may have on the company. And then you look at the overall impact analysis. Now, this identifies the overall effect that making the decision will have on the company. If you're able to do this, you will realize that you would even begin to find certain loopholes in the ideas you probably want to share. You probably would have thought that having a software is a great idea. And then when you begin to do this analysis, you begin to find, oh, if we do it like this, it's going to even impact us more negatively than it will positively. And that would even help you to gauge the quality of ideas you're bringing to the table because you have done an analysis of what you want to share. See, on the other hand, if the idea is very solid, these analyses will even help you break down the idea in such a ways that you are so convincing and you are passing a lot of message and they're like, wow, this is deep research. You've been able to score a goal beyond just sharing an idea to even show them implementation processes, the end result, and the overall impact, both financially and customer wise. You get? Now, if you're able to do this, you will find that your preparation for meetings just shows that you are thinking fast, you're thinking ahead. All right. Another way to take initiative, very importantly, is by anticipating questions and prepare answers. So some time ago, I was relating with some people, and then I told them, I said, okay, if you would ever bring me a question, here's what you do. Make sure that before you bring the question, you've thought of three answers to those questions. So the moment you ask me the question, you say, I need help in this area. I want to be able to get this done. The first thing I'll ask you is, what are the three ways or three areas that you thought or you've thought of as a way of solving this particular problem? Let me see what you've thought on your own. And at that point, I want to see that you're thinking. You know why? Many times, the problem is not the problem. The problem is how you think about the problem. What does that mean? It means that perception goes a long way to affect results. So if you already have a certain perception about a particular problem that is not empowering or that is disempowering, what would happen is you are coming up with questions in a very disempowering manner because of your perception. Meanwhile, that problem is not supposed to be so huge as it were, but because of the perception you have about that problem, it makes it look like it is huge. So the problem is not even the problem on ground. It is how you are thinking about the problem on ground that is now a problem. So there needs to be some deconstruction in your thinking to be able to improve this and maybe begin to get results. So it's important to say, okay, so if this were to be the question on ground, how would I have answered it? How would I have solved it? Now, you are taking steps ahead beyond just bringing up a question, but also thinking how that can be solved. So, if you arrive to your meeting having identified where issues occurred and with actionable ways to avoid these issues in the future, you will show that you are willing to take the initiative to meet challenges and work to improve or to prevent them. All right. So, um, before the last slide, because we're looking at 9 ways that we can show or take initiative for improved workplace effectiveness, I'd just like to confirm that you can all hear me once more, please. So while this is loading, I think I said a few things that I might just recap, and then as soon as it loads, I'll just wrap up with the last slide and we're done. So I said that taking initiative will require a lot of involvement in the sense that you have to be mentally, emotionally involved in a thing to be able to take initiative. Because if you feel less concerned about anything, you will most likely not be able to come up with ideas. You will most likely not be able to think up things, think on your feet. So you just be like the person who only acts based on instruction. And many times you may not even be able to deliver completely on instruction because your heart is not in it. Your heart has to be in anything to be able to take initiative and produce the kind of results that is required to really be effective in the workplace. So it's important to know that no matter what you do, all of this boils down from being intentional in the first place. You have to be intentional about taking initiative. You have to be involved in the process. You have to love what you are doing. You have to be committed before you can eventually find yourself in that place where you're taking initiative. So I think this is the last slide where I stopped. Anticipate questions and prepare answers. My video is off. Okay, it's on now. Can you see me? Great. Okay. So anticipate questions and prepare answers. So you set realistic standards, so that now you can set achievable standards by taking initiative only on tasks that you have the time, energy, and resources to contribute to. For example, you could help a colleague brainstorm on how to improve a policy, but allow that colleague to draft and implement the updated policy on their own. So it's okay to want to take initiative, but again, sometimes you can get too involved in many things that your own deliverables are not being met. So what do? You know that you have to set standards. Okay, I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to take initiative, but your work doesn't have to die in the process of trying to take initiative. All right. So you can set achievable standards by taking initiative only on tasks that you have the time, energy, and resources to contribute to. For example, you could help a colleague brainstorm how to improve a policy, but allow that colleague to draft and implement the updated policy on their own. If you have an idea for improvement but don't have the time to lead the initiative, you could present your idea to your team to see if another team member can volunteer to work on it. So I like this quote so much by Martin Luther King Jr. It says, if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets so well, like Michelangelo painted pictures, sweep streets like Beethoven composed music, sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry, sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job so well. I like to say that this quote by Martin Luther King stirred up a lot of energy. So here lived a great street sweeper who did his job so well, a great painter who painted his job so well, and it's important to know that whatever you do, it may look small, but in a system, it's just like when you cut off the hand, the entire system of the body fails. And that's how it is in corporate settings. No matter how small it is, what you do, you realize that even that small thing has a major role to play in the overall system. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been useful to us. At this point, I'd like to take questions and contributions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Young. Great session. And yeah, I think you really did justice to I think like one of the key things that you spoke about is not taking work personal and explain it in your own way. I really liked I really like that. My question is, how do you so how like they will tell you that, oh, okay, you know what, you are not your work, and feedback on your work is not actually, you not take it personal. But when you get like really great feedback on your work, it's it affects the other things you do. Your day is bright, and all of those things. So, and I know, I mean, so do you just like accept positive feedback, light up your day, and then when the feedback is negative because of your work, you just like push it aside because you don't want it to affect you. I think there's a very thin line, between self-improvement and killing yourself because of negative feedback. So I don't know if you can sort of like talk about that as well. But I don't know if my question is clear.
Okay. I would assume that the question is coming from the area of mental health, yeah?
Um, not necessarily, right? So okay, let me say in different parts, different way now, right? Okay, yeah, maybe mental health, right? Because I was having a conversation with somebody and they asked, I was like, okay, I don't even know, right? So, you know how if you get positive feedback about your work, great feedback. So even if it's your work, it affects your day. Every other thing that you do that day, like, you do it very well because you're still like, tapping into that energy, right? But you will also be told to separate, like, feedback on your work is not you, right? And it means that when you get negative feedback, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you do, bad jobs or anything. It's just on that job, right? But people cannot easily get to that point where they just block themselves off and be like, I don't want to feel bad because, somebody's saying something, right? And then maybe you don't end up learning from that, or you just avoid because you don't want your mood to spoil, you know. So I think it's a thing, right? Where you accept like positive stuff and then the negative stuff, you just throw them away and then use the excuse of, because it was going to mess up my day and all of those things. So that's just where I'm coming from.
Okay.
How do you yes, I think it should not be how do you like accept negative feedback
Okay.
without like use without allowing it to rub off on your person and like destroy any other thing you're doing for that day.
All right. Okay. So, um, one of the most powerful things I've learned is that in life, there are no failures, there are only feedback. So even the things that we call success is a feedback as to what you are able to do. So when you do something and you achieve a particular goal and you feel so happy about what you've achieved, what happens is that that thing is giving you feedback. You are happy because that feedback is the kind of feedback you like. It is a kind of feedback that gives you joy. Wow, you're so great at producing content. Your content is always excellent. It feels good to be in that place. That success, that milestone is a feedback. Now, you are not good at writing. Every time you write, it is work. It is a feedback. What is it saying? It means go and improve on your writing or your writing skill. So we can take this personal as an individual because, again, yes, it would affect your emotions and your person. But it's important to also know that in between all of this, you are whole as a person. So it's just like the example I share many times when you know someone who is probably a workaholic. And the moment you see that person, you say, this person that is always working is a workaholic. There are different sides to that person beyond being workaholic, but it's easy to already say young equal to workaholic. Meanwhile, the same young can be very playful. And then because you are focused on the workaholic side of young, you disregard the fact that hey, he can be very playful, he can be very jovial, he can be, you get. Now, what this means is that we are not what we do part time. You are not what you do because there's a whole lot of stuff that makes up who you are. So if you do something in the workplace and then it just so happens that it didn't come out so well and the feedback hits on you very maybe in such a way that it hurts, what you can do again is ask yourself, what is the feedback that I'm supposed to take from this? Because this thing, termed failure at this point, is not who I am. It is just a place. So it's just like saying that you failed mathematics in school. Does it make you a failure at life? You just failed a subject, not life. Your entire life does not now mean that you have failed. So I get that these feedbacks, they can come in such a way that we personalize them. But even when it is good or bad, it is both feedback. It's just that we like the good, but we don't like the bad. And it is not supposed to define our person, as it were. It's supposed to just give us a feedback on areas we should pay attention to and probably even improve where they need be. I don't know if I've helped with that answer.
Yes, thank you. I
All
think
right.
like I think like explaining that everything is feedback just sort of makes sense.
Great.
Um, and Yeah, I mean, I think it's still going to be hard for some, like, to
Yes,
like
usually
sometimes.
it is, of
Yeah,
course.
yes, because like, because how do you be like, okay, yeah, this thing makes me feel good, and then this other one makes me feel bad, but still like going. So I think it takes a lot of you realizing that work is work and it's nothing personal, and say you want to do something, you don't do it honestly, right? So a friend will always say that if you, he was always say like he will always say that the the remedy for insults, is producing results. And
Yeah.
because depending on how feedback comes to you, right? You may feel like that feedback is harsh, right? Just go and produce results and make sure that the next time. So I think that for every time you get feedback, there's always truth in that feedback, regardless. And you talked about action and intention as well. Um, so that explains that you have to then realize this is just space and time. And no matter what they say to you, I think it's always like really important that you go back and ask yourself, is there something you could have done better? And is there something you could have done to avoid it? Once you realize that, take away your mind from whatever, however the feedback has been served to you, or do better job so that the next time, in quotes, if that was results, right? You then have results. So yeah, but thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that feedback too. I really appreciate it. All right, do we have any further questions or contributions before we call this a day? All right, if we don't, at this point, I'd just like to particularly uh, thank uh, Professor Yusuf Adeniji, who joined this session. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you join here. This means a lot. Thank you. Siliola Akimbowale, I'm not sure I know you, but I'd like to say thank you for joining, and all the staff at FutureSoft, and of course our CEO. Thank you so much. It's been a great time being here today. We look forward to further series on the Launch and Learn, and of course we keep uh, giving out value as much as we can to help improve systems, practices, cultures, as it were, in the digital space. All right. Thank you so much. I would like to wish us a successful week and a wonderful day as well. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
y'all.
great day.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you, John.